Rohit Das, 30C English, Pioneer College. Readings on Democracy and Secularism. Chapter 13, A Hindu Princess and Her Islamic Dynasty. Written by Kottarathil Sankunni. Translated by T.C. Narayanan. The story of a Hindu princess who embraced Islam to respect tradition and started a new dynasty in order to resolve a crisis with justice, courage, and tolerance. Arakkal Bibi's hometown was Kannur in Chirakkal Taluk, and her family had separated from the local Chirakkal Kolatiri royal family. This story narrates the events that led to this separation. Until the 4th century in the Malayalam era, the Kolatiri royal family had lived in the then capital Ezhimalakota. The growth of the family led to differences within it, and many left the main branch to find new homes in places such as Kattimangalam, Cherugunnu, Valapattanam, and so on. The ruler continued to live in the same palace in Ezhimalakota. This location is 20 miles to the north of Kannur, and the ruins of this palace are still to be seen atop the Ezhimala hill. The sea is only a short distance to the west of Ezhimala. Below the hill was a palatial mansion with 18 inner courtyards and a huge area of land around it. A river flowed past the palace. All around the palace were several Brahmin homes as well as the residential quarters of 500 Nayar warriors. Not far away lived wealthy Muslims who were also courageous soldiers. One day, two young unwed princesses went down to the river to bathe in their protected bathing place. They spent a lot of time frolicking in the water, diving and swimming to the middle of the river. After some time, they were tired, and the younger of the two princesses swam back ashore. Her sister was overcome by fatigue and was in danger of drowning. Seeing this, the younger sister cried for help. These cries were heard by a handsome young Muslim who was bathing just a short distance away. He jumped into the water, swam to the princess, and pulled her towards the shore. As they approached the shore, he found that the princess had stopped in neck-deep water and was refusing to move. Understanding the reason, he untied one of the clothes he had around him and threw it to her and then left the place. The princess, whose clothes had been washed away in the strong current, wrapped the Muslim lad's clothes around her and went ashore to complete the bath. By this time, the maids had rushed in and they escorted the princesses back to the palace. The news of the rescue spread like wildfire, and the ruler, the princess's uncle, was overjoyed. He sent for the Muslim youth who turned out to be one of his soldiers, which gave the ruler greater happiness. He rewarded the soldier generously with gifts such as new clothes and a higher rank in the army. The older princess refused to enter the palace and moved into an outhouse in the palace yard. The elders in the family did their best to persuade her to move back into the palace, but she refused. She said that in rescuing her, the Muslim youth had held her hand and then given her a cloth, which are two acts that constituted the greater part of a marriage ritual. As such, a marriage between the princess and a Muslim was not permissible, and the princess argued she was an outcast and could not enter the palace. Determined to retrieve his young niece at any cost, the ruler sent for the local seers and priests to arrange for a ritual which would help the princess atone for her perceived misconduct and purify herself. All these wise men saw in this invitation an opportunity to collect much wealth and prescribed lengthy and expensive rituals, followed by a lavish feast for all. The ruler was unmoved by this advice and agreed to let them know of the day of the ritual to begin. The news of the ruler's meeting with the seers and priests reached the princess, who remained adamant in her earlier decision. The ruler himself tried and failed to change his niece's decision. Realizing the futility of further efforts in this matter, it was agreed by all that a palace with all comforts should be built nearby. This was done, and the princess was given clothes, ornaments, vessels, and such gifts so that she could continue to live like a princess. In order to ensure her physical security, she was given in marriage to the handsome Muslim youth. He was also given the same privileges as consorts of princesses were entitled to according to the custom of the time. The princess came to be known by the Muslim name Arakal Bibi, and her male descendants were referred to as Arakal Rajas. Muslim women are expected to observe parda so that they are protected from the looks of men outside their family. However, in view of the close relationship between the two families, the Arakal Bibis did not have to follow this custom in their interaction with the men of the royal family. Whenever the members of the Chirakal Kolatiri family met the Arakal Rajas, the latter always greeted them with traditional gifts. The Arakal family gradually grew in power and influence, and the people coined the slogan Arakal is half of Chirakal. How did the Arakal family move to Kannur? In the 7th century of the Malayalam era, the prime minister of the Kolatiri ruler, Arayankulangara Nayar, embraced Islam and changed his name to Muhammad Ali but continued as prime minister. He also took the ruler's permission to marry one of the Bibis of the Arakal family. After his days, his sons remained to serve the ruler loyally. One of them, Ali Musa, who was commander of the ruler's army, captured the Maldives island and presented them to his master. As a reward, the ruler presented the Ali Musa family with 18,000 panams, or local currency, a fort in Kannur, and two villages, Kanatur and Kanottuchal. The ruler soon moved from Edimalakota to Valapattanam and Ali Musa to Kannur fort. Ali Musa then helped the ruler capture Lakshadweep, which was duly presented to Arakal Bibi with an annual tax of 6,000 panams to be paid by Lakshadweep. The Kolatiri ruler also gave Ali Musa the title of Adi Raja, or the ruler of the seas, which was soon distorted to Ali Raja. When Malabar became the part of British territory, Arakal Bibi handed over the administration of Lakshadweep to the British with the condition that a part of the tax collected should go to her. However, this condition was never honored and the British treated Lakshadweep as their own territory. Not so long ago, there was a dispute between the British and Ali Raja regarding the administration of Lakshadweep. Finally, it ended in a compromise by which the British agreed to make an annual payment of a sizable sum of money to Arakal Bibi. Apart from this, the entire Chirakal family was also awarded a privy purse. The Arakal and Chirakal families continue to live in amity to this day, and may God help them to remain so with greater happiness and prosperity. About the author and the story. Kottarathil Sankunni, 1855 to 1937, was born in Kottayam. He was an illustrious writer who lived at the time of the evolution of Malayalam language and new forms of literature. His contribution include both writings in poetry and prose. He is mostly remembered for his compilation of the legendary stories of Kerala in 8 volumes titled as Aidhyamala, or Garland of Legends. The legends were collected and published by Sankunni in the Malayalam literary magazine of the 19th century, the Bhasha Poshini, of which he was a founder. A legend is a genre of folk telling the stories of human action and beliefs. Unlike folk tales, which are structured, legends are nebulous and closer to the history than myth. So, a legend mostly has a historical figure or place within. This story about the Hindu princess is the opening piece of a translated collection of Aidhyamala as lore and legends of Kerala selections from Kottarathil Shankunni's Aidhyamala by T.C. Narayan. The story is that the Arakal dynasty descended from a Hindu princess who converted to Islam. The story tells how the Arakal dynasty happened to evolve from Chirakal through a young princess. A portion of the Arakal Kettu presently houses a museum. Glossary. Outcast. A person who is expelled from a community. Retrieve. Get back something lost. Consorts, husband or wife of a king or ruler. Privy purse, allowance, especially provided to those of the royal family for personal expenses. Answer in 2 or 3 sentences. First question. The original teller of the story begins it by taking a position. What is it? Second, what happened at the river? Third question, can the drowning incident be a strategy imagined by the people of the time to explain a relationship that both religions found hard to accept? Justify your answer. 4. What was the argument of the saved princess? 5. What did the ruler do to retrieve his niece? 6. What were the two rituals that constituted Hindu marriage? 7. How did the wise men exploit the situation? 8. Is it reasonable to attribute the holding of the land and giving of the cloth in a particular situation to that of doing it in marriage? 9. What can you infer about the rigidity of religions in those days? 10. Do stories like this serve the purpose of controlling women? Answer in 80 to 100 words. 1. The story of the origin of the Arakkal family. 2. Control on personal relationships. 3. Does the myth present interreligious marriage as an accidental one rather than one based on mutual affection and love? Answer in 200 to 250 words. What can be inferred from the story about local history and the people? 2. Recount the story of the princess and the dynasty that came to be established through her. Read, relate, and write. 1. The princess in the story said that in rescuing her, the Muslim youth had held her hand and given her a cloth, which are two acts that constituted the greater part of a marriage ritual. She said she became an outcast and did not want to enter the temple. Centuries after, in modern India, something similar happened in the life of Budhini, and interestingly, it was because Nehru garlanded her. Show how lives of women are sacrificed for rituals, honor, and community pride. 2. What the princess says reminds of Pulappedi and Mannapped, some practices in ancient Kerala. Write how such practices worked to reinforce caste and control women. 3. Read the account given below and see how a superhuman agency is called into existence to explain an otherwise embarrassing incident of a strange death by drowning. Compare and contrast the legend given below with that of the princess. The lore is about a Mukri named Kalanthan of Pulingo Mosque. While was fishing in the Kollada river using poisonous berries, he noticed a bright spot of light on the bank opposite and swam towards it. When he reached that spot, he found that the light was now seen on the spot where he stood earlier. He decided to swim back and jumped into the river. Half the distance, Kalanthan felt a pull on his leg. He struggled himself to keep his balance and move forward, but felt being pulled to the depths. The body was found floating later. The story goes that goddess Chamundi, presiding deity of the Kamballur Kottayal Nayar household, had drowned him. Astrologers later divined that Kalandan has merged into the divine. Then onwards, every year, Mappila Chamundi Theyyam was performed at Kamballur Kottayal household to honor him. 6. A legend is a means of preserving the memories of the community for transmission to the coming generations. Discuss. 7. Watch the movie Karindandan and write a review.